obedience isn't always love. Some people want to obey for the rewards of not disobeying. Disobedient. The rewards are great. There's no punishment. But love is not thinking of punishment. It removes all fear. Therefore, love is obedience in wanting to obey your Heavenly Father. This brings you to actions. Now, we went through a few actions. We said that when you die, the action of dying is to practice the presence of God. If you practice God's presence, it would change your life. If you was here all the time and you saw him, would it change the way you live, the way you talk, the way you thought, the way you would act? Practicing God's presence. We also said that when Christ is alive, we should be asking ourselves the question, what would Jesus do? What would he do? But the most important action, I think, this morning is this one, that when we live by faith, it is in loving obedience to the Son of God, and we want to live in such a way that the action is from Hebrews 11. This is the faith chapter. Go home this afternoon and read it for yourself. But you will find that every single example of all of these faith men and women and giants of Scripture, every single one of them, there is an action. There is never a I love you, God, but no action. And that's why when he says, I am crucified with Christ, I no longer live, Christ lives in me, and the life I live now in the flesh is an action towards the Son of God. Faith is an action. And if it's an action, guess what? It is a living experience with the presence of God, because the presence is the power of God, and the power of God becomes our peace in his presence. You can go from Noah. He built an ark by faith, even when there was no threat visibly for 120 years. Abraham left Ur. He sacrificed his son. You go through each and every one of those examples, and there is examples that we come to the end of this chapter, and it says, still others had trials of mockings and scourgings, yes, and of chains and imprisonment. These are actions. Imprisonment is an action. Mocking is an action done to you because you refuse to deny Jesus Christ. They were stoned. They were sawn in two. They were tempted. They were slain with a sword. They wandered about in sheep's clothes and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and mountains and dens and caves of the earth. Faith moves you to action, to leave home if you have to be destitute if you need to. How many have left their tribe in Africa, their home, their father, or in the Middle East, and left their mother and father and their family because the family would not accept them if they accepted Jesus? And they chose to leave their family to accept Jesus and God's family more than their own. Are we too comfortable in America? We don't have that threat right now. But there's coming a time that this coronavirus is planning and teaching us and helping us. Not that the coronavirus is doing this, but we, in the threat of life, can realign our lives with this faith experience of action. Verse 39, ending Hebrews 11, and all these, having obtained a good testimony through faith, did not receive the promise, God having provided something better for us, that they should not be made perfect apart from us. You can become frozen in fear with the coronavirus. Or you can start practicing the action of faith and trust and confidence of a God who loves you, died for you, holds you if you let him have your life. Living by faith is in action. And I end with this last verse that 1 John 5 tells us. It says this, verse 4. For whatever is born of God overcomes the world. And this is the victory that has overcome the world. Listen to it. This is the victory that has overcome the world. Our faith. When we are alive with Jesus, victory is ours. That I've crucified myself, I no longer live. We live, and the life I live is in faith, in action, in response to God, and nothing and no one else. If God is for me, who can be against me? Action. A trust in those nail-pierced hands. Action. And so I'm inviting you to practice this faith, which is love, obedience. And I want you to practice this as we anticipate the day of Jesus soon coming. And he's going to come and those clouds are going to burst through and we're going to say, yes, this is our God. We waited for him. Our faith has wrapped up in who he is. Our love is wrapped up in who he is. Our obedience evidences the love that we've been practicing, wrapped up in who he is. That is faith. And so in your homes, you have this opportunity. And I want to end with this song. This song I wrote in response to these thoughts and concepts because I believe that they are critical today. That we can be partakers of the divine nature. I cannot make that happen. But he who invites me to be crucified with him invites me to be partakers of his divine nature also. And in being a partaker of his divine nature, I have the privilege of also experiencing and exploring that this God who loves me, died for me, is going to resurrect me and renew me into newness of life. And so as you are at home during this time, I know that it's an opportunity to re-collaborate with each other. It's an opportunity to connect. Cross-connection means with heaven and each other. My humanity clings to your divinity. Your divinity clings to my humanity. In your sanctuary, you connected me, cross-connected me. Sin separated me, faltering for thee, into your sanctuary. Dirty, desperate dying, your cross-connected me with godly sorrow. Your God God-forsaken pain. Your cross connected me. I am crucified with Christ, my passions and desires have died to the world. Christ resurrected me. Forgiven praise, cross connected, cross corrected. Forgiven praise, cross protected, cross connected praise. Sin separated me, faltering for thee. Into your sanctuary, dirty, desperate, dying. Your cross connected me in your sanctuary. No condemnation now. I'm grace reconciled. Your cross connected me in your sanctuary. Divine humanity, cross connected me. Love sought, love bought, love compelled. Your cross connected me with godly sorrow. Your God-forsaken pain, your cross connected me. I am crucified with Christ, my passions and desires have died to the world. Christ resurrected me. Forgiven praise, cross connected, cross corrected. Forgiven praise, cross perfected, cross connected. Forgiven praise, forgiven praise, forgiven praise, forgiven praise. Father in heaven, I pray that your mercy and grace will hold us in such a way that we will experience the forgiven praise of a gracious God that wants to hold our lives, wants to live in our lives, that we will be alive with him and through him, anticipating eternity forever. May the promises of God the Father, the sweet presence of Jesus, and the power of the Holy Spirit abide with us now and forever. I pray in Christ's holy name. Amen.